February 17th, and here is the news. Jaden?
Well, today, at the top of the story here, the Trump administration has begun firing several hundred Federal Aviation Administration employees weeks after the fatal mid-air collision at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport. These happen to be probationary employees. Those who have been hired and or promoted within a year, within the last year, have now been put on an indefinite leave. In addition to that, earlier today, Delta Airlines had a major plane crash landing in Toronto upside down. Now, as of this recording, no casualties have been reported, but several people were entered into the hospital, some in critical condition. This comes shortly after another major plane crash occurred just last night, February 16th, near Covington Municipal Airport, unaliving two individuals, James and Janet Hardy, the only people on board when their Rockwell commander went down. The FAA and the NTSB are currently investigating this crash. What have you got?
Yeah, we were also talking about the cuts that are happening that are going to affect this, and we're starting to see it. I can't really figure out, is this just like an immediate reaction to the cuts, to the staffing shortages that are going on? Is like we're seeing planes going down, um, because these airliners doing this is very, very rare. But we had the one at SeaTac, we had the one at which the plane crashed into each other, the one that came out of Minneapolis into Canada today, and then the one from a couple of weeks ago with the Black Hawk helicopter. And I can't quite figure out, like, is this just an immediate response to what he's doing in gutting the government? Because if this continues, I'm inclined to think yes. That's been the
Mm-hmm.
question, is like, at what point do we assign blame? And honestly, I think he just gets the blame here. If we're seeing this many, if we continue to see them, because there's been one every day or every other day. And I know
Yep.
that a lot of these are smaller airfields and stuff like that. um, but this is concerning. And it goes to this larger picture that I have been screaming on TikTok. I have been telling people this incessantly. We are going to watch bad things happen and made worse by the Trump administration. We're talking about natural disasters and the funding cuts, or natural disasters and the fact that FEMA is being gutted and there's just not going to be any leadership. Or we're talking about the FAA, which already has an increased amount of near misses. Or we're talking about the USDA, where we have outbreaks. They just cut 1,000 employees today. Is another story that broke. They cut over 1,000 employees of the probationary employees. So you're going to see the increase in salmonella, E. coli, various different foodborne illnesses, as well as there's not the scientists anymore because they cut 1/4 of all scientists that were studying and tracking H5N1. So we're going to watch more chickens become infected, poultry and various different farm animals, and it's going to get more expensive for us as a result. Um, I'm not really sure what the game plan of the Trump administration is, if they're just this inept, but at a certain point, you have to start assigning blame. And I think that I think it's probably going to become very, very obvious, very apparent, and very irrefutable here shortly. Because it's kind of like, at what point do you assess blame? I think that we're going to start watching this happen in the next month or two. Like major, major stories breaking where it's like, we have salmonella outbreaks or E. coli outbreaks. We already had a botulism outbreak in tuna that just recently
Mm-hmm.
happened from Costco and Trader Joe's. So if you've got any of that in your cupboard, please get rid of it. But that's kind of what's going on, and I'm very, very concerned because I don't think that they've done a very good job trying to implement their social beliefs, and I think they're getting a lot of stuff stuck in court and they're losing. I think the very real concerning thing is that breakdown of the federal government and the bad things that are going to happen as a result of it. And I have been saying this in nearly every video on TikTok for like the last week because I think it's so important, because what's happening now is going to be linked to what happens later. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yes. Four top deputies in Eric Adams' administrations have submitted their resignations today in a latest sign of New York mayor's cratering support among rank and file workers and the city's elected officials. This includes Maria Torres Springer, first deputy mayor, Ann Williams-Ism, the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services, Mira Joshi, Deputy Mayor of Operations, and Chauncey Parker, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety, all of whom have notified Mayor Adams today that they would step down from their post. This, of course, follows the issue from Trump's Department of Justice ordering the dropping of all charges related to this case of corruption and bribery from Mayor Adams' post. They've alleged that those who are seeking to prosecute this case are impeding upon Mayor Adams' ability to combat migration issues in New York. They've issued an ultimatum stating that all prosecutors, federal or state, must step down if they don't abide by this decision, and have issued that out, resulting in several people leaving their post. Let's see what else we've got. In addition to people stepping down,
Did you see
the Social Security what's up?
No, go ahead. I'll get to this one after because I think this is the one I'm going to say here in a second. I think is probably the most important case of the day. Oddly enough, more so than a plane flipping over.
Yes,
which is wild to believe that.
The Social Security Administration's acting commissioner has stepped down from her role at the agency over the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE's, request to access Social Security recipient information, according to those familiar with the office's departure. This is acting commissioner Michelle King. This departure from the agency after 30 years of service was initiated following this pushback against DOGE's initiative. They've now gained access to Treasury payments, through Social Security payments, through the IRS payment system as well. So this follows a continued trend of people standing in the way, the safeguards of these now being ordered or forced into resignation.
So I wanted to break this story because it's really important. Did you see about AOC and Tom Homan?
What happened there? Oh, was it the one where he demanded her to be deported?
No,
or arrested?
they're trying to prosecute AOC, and of course MAGA's like they're supporting this. So here's what happened: AOC gave on webinars on what your rights are to protect against ICE, and Tom Homan is like, that's illegal. You can't aid and abet them like that. So like even giving people information on what their rights are, this is wildly and blatantly against free speech, right? In order for you to provide aid to immigrants, it has to be like material aid. You can't just, you could tell a criminal like how to get away with a crime. It doesn't mean that you're, doesn't mean that you're being charged with it. But she goes out and gives this information on what to do if you're stopped by ICE. And so now they're like, we're going to prosecute you or investigate. And it's crazy because MAGA is out there going, no, yeah, this is totally okay. Which I am flabbergasted by. They're out here going, oh, we love free speech, we love free speech, we love free speech. And then turn around and like, we're going to charge AOC for doing exactly that. It is the craziest thing. But Tom Homan, I guess, is going to go after or try and investigate AOC because she gave a webinar on how to avoid being picked up by ICE. So
it goes for Ilhan Omar.
But this is an important one because this is going to be a tester case. And I think that if she's put through too much harassment, she should sue. She should sue 100% and go after the Trump administration for violating her rights. But incidentally enough, I wonder if this is like a violation of rights case. It might be. But we'll have to see and follow it through because this is going to be important, what they're able to get away with in the courts because of this. I don't expect it to go anywhere. I think it's probably going to be pretty, stupid. You can give out information to people, whether or not that information you can. So the way it works really is like you can give out information to people, even if that information is going to be used for illegal things. That's free speech. You can't do that in the event that like they're going to do it and you give them instructions on how to do it. That would be a different situation. But just telling people what their rights are is not a violation. And for the record, I'm talking about like teaching people how to do really awful things like murder or terrorist attacks or something. Like that would be one of those situations. So she's sort of like, this is going to be a tester case for the Trump administration. This is very clear them weaponizing it. But as I've said before, and I'll say again, MAGA is going to scream free speech while they take it from you. They will scream it and scream it and scream it, and then they will come for it. That is how fascism works. And I think we're in a fascist idiocracy. I came up with that last night. I think that's where we're at. Fascist idiocracy. Do
Yep.
we have more news stories for the day, Jane?
Yeah, just two more major stories here from the international front. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has said that his country will not be taking part in U.S.-Russia talks this week on the ending of the war in Ukraine and won't accept the outcome of the talks if Russia is not a part of this decision. As of tomorrow, top Russian officials will be holding press conferences with the United States in Saudi Arabia over any kind of contingency plan in ending this war. Zelensky has rejected any and all prospective conditions on this if that government is not involved. And I think that's a fair move to make. We're talking about a nation that has been invaded by Russia. They should not be calling the shots with the United States.
There's also the problem where Hegseth has basically said that land has to be ceded, which is like, so you've just told Russia that they now should expect that they're going to get land for their invasion. They shouldn't get anything. That's why would we reward people for invading? If someone explain that to me, it's not. This is a situation where, like I've said before, we've known for a long time that if Ukraine was going to lose or had the possibility to lose, or this was going to be an incredibly costly war, which it already has been, but even more so to a degree where it's just like they have to make concessions, then yeah, we could see that. But there's no real end goal for Russia here, right? There's no end goal. You're giving concessions to a side that is going to lose. They are going to have to pull out of the country if nothing else changes. There's a big bargaining chip. Like, we can just keep funding them and you guys will end up having to leave anyways. Why would you offer them concessions under any circumstance? And why would you give your leverage out to the public like that? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So we're going to offer them. So now they're expecting land in return. Ukraine's like, no, we don't want any part in it. And we now have NATO and their various leaders throughout Europe calling emergency sessions, trying to figure out what they're going to do, because they're like, well, if he can invade and have land, if he can invade and take over whatever he wants, and that's perfectly acceptable, and we condone that, then he's going to try it to us in the Eastern Bloc. So,
yep. In addition to that, the U.S. has issued a move of extortion, demanding ownership of 50% of Ukraine's rare earth minerals in exchange for defense aid in this front.
yeah. This one I find funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I find this one funny because you're going to set up like mining operations in a DMZ,
Oversight?
in a DMZ. Like you're gonna set up in a neutral zone. You're gonna set up mines. No, that's not gonna happen. So I don't know. Like he's bargaining like, well, you can either keep your land and we get to get all the resources, or they can have the land. And I'm not really sure how binding that agreement would be anyways, right? 4 years come around, another president's like, no, we don't care. Do what you want. We'll work with you as a partner type thing. I'm not sure how binding that would be. They're not going to pull any resources out of the ground the next 4 years anyways. It'd be very difficult in an active war zone. So I don't. So Zelensky was just like, yeah, okay, we'll accept that because he knows like that it's not coming out of the ground for a long time. You have to do exploration. You have to set up shop there. You have to get international investors. It could take a decade or more, long after Trump's dead and gone. So, yeah, I just think it is extortion. Like we want all your they're just going around in the most fascistic way, like give us all your resources or else we're gonna leverage your country and the lives of tens of millions of people for some stuff we won't see for a long time. It's just, this is like when unfortunately MAGA looks at that and goes like, that's such a strong move, and the rest of the world, right, and the rest of the world looks at that from some sort of empathetic lens and goes like, that's gross. Like it's like and by the way, Republicans wouldn't be for this if it happened here. Well, listen, he's holding you hostage. I'm the police. I want half of everything that you have in the bank, or he's going to do what he wants. You'd be like, that's fucked up.
Give us some of your oil.
Give us what you got, or you're getting it from him. That's not a negotiation. That's you extorting someone. That's you weaponizing a situation And in this instance, it's going to be tens of millions of lives. For what? For what? Some resources that they would gladly sell to us anyways?
Yes.
I. It's sick.
And the last story on the part of foreign affairs here, the Trump administration has released a shipment of 1,800 MK-84 2,000-pound bombs, which have now arrived in Israel. They were previously blocked for months under the Biden administration over concerns that they would be using them in an unethical manner and targeting of civilians. They now have full access to these bombs, and there is no sense of oversight or authority over them at this point.
Awesome. Swell. They voted for, I guess, well, they didn't vote. The leftists didn't vote to save Gaza. Now there is no more Gaza to save. So,
Yeah. There can't be any war if he's killed them all.
I still hold serious anger over that and be so real with you. And people still
I
trying to
agree.
justify it. And it's not forgivable. It's not. I forgave everybody once when they did it with Stein in the first one with Hillary Clinton, and I won't do it again. I won't do it again. You fell for the same playbook, the same Russian playbook, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So there's the news. I will say, before we close it out here, I'm surprised. I thought the Trump administration would be doing a better job at trying to implement what they're doing, but instead they're just causing long-term problems. There seems to be no real coherence on what they want, and there seems to be severe infighting. I think the biggest concern right now, the most irreversible thing so far, is what they're doing to our government agencies and the damage and destruction that it's going to cause. They don't realize that it's going to cause damage and destruction, but the Trump administration is going to spend a lot of time cleaning up the messes that they've made. And it's not something that I wish for, but I think the best outcome here is they do so much damage that they spend the next 4 years trying to clean it up. And it's going to be bad for everyone, but we will at least survive it. It won't get the institutional damage done, the irreversible stuff. So, it's the news.